Hello, welcome everyone. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and we're just so excited to bring this new platform here. Wednesday nights called Going Bold, and we're going bold on Wednesdays with men issues, topics, and concerns. And so I want to thank you so much for joining us here tonight because we really do have a great time with you all. So if you guys don't know me, I am Cece Schatz. I am the doyenne of relationship building, and what that means is I really take you through some of the darkest times in your life. And we bring you around to embracing our single life and really start building a life in which we choose. And those of you that have heard of me, I am a divorce, dating, and life transition coach. And I began Going Solo Network, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network in around 2016. So we are changing lives one talk show at a time. And I want to thank all of our wonderful hosts here on the station that helps us do that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to move forward to Dad's Going Solo. And Dad's Going Solo is one of our brand new shows, and I'm so proud to be able to bring this to you. So we're going to talk about guys. We're going to talk about what they go through, try to help empower them to be able to move forward in being the kind of man that we ladies love, right? So we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about the knowledge of power, and we're going to do that with an awesome host. And let's bring him forward, our guest here tonight, Jason Levoy, aka the Divorce Resource Guy. And he's a former divorce attorney turned divorce coach. So tell us a little bit, Jason, your path on being an attorney and then deciding that you wanted to be a divorce coach.
Absolutely. And first, Cece, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I'm excited to be here and talk to your audience. Again, my name is Jason Levoy. People call me the Divorce Resource Guy. It's kind of a name that just kind of stuck over time. But basically, right now, I don't represent people in their divorces anymore. I serve, like you said, as a divorce coach. And so what makes me different than other coaches out there is that I coach from an attorney's point of view because I am one and I did it. So everything I do is geared from my experience as a divorce attorney, except the difference is, I don't technically give legal advice, especially if you're not in New Jersey, because that's where I'm licensed. And B, as a coach, I'm more of your, I don't know how to, I always have trouble articulating this part of it, but because I don't like to say angel on your shoulder, but I'm a little guy on your shoulder and your advocate. And I'm there to guide you throughout the journey, ideally from the beginning, before anything's filed with court, before you even maybe have told your spouse that you're ready for divorce and that you want a divorce, because preparation, in my opinion, is the most important phase of the whole process. And so if you go into it prepared, and that's where the knowledge is power comes from, then you will get off on the right foot and, it'll be a lot smoother than if you're not prepared. Not to say a contested divorce is not probably going to be smooth at all. I always say divorce is like a roller coaster. You're going to have your shares of ups and downs. So strap yourself in. But the more prepared you are, the smoother the ride will be.
Right. I've often said too, Jason, is that the fear of the unknown, right? And not knowing what to experience. And with you being, a previous attorney, a family law attorney, you certainly know the ins and outs of it. And also then with regards to dealing with, people on trying to do what they need to do and they help them understand the process of it. Now, what personally made you switch from being an attorney to a coach? Because that's quite a switch. And I know more and more attorneys are now becoming coaches. So tell us what your personal journey, why you decided to do it.
Well, in my opinion, it's an interesting story. I'll share the quick version with you and your audience because I remember it like it was yesterday, to be honest with you. It sticks in my mind like that clearly. I was practicing as a divorce attorney here in New Jersey. And I was on the phone with a colleague of mine, another attorney representing the husband. I was representing the wife. They shared one minor child. I think she was about maybe 9-10 years old. And basically, this is what did it. We were arguing over who was going to pick the child up on a Saturday morning and the time. And the difference between what the wife wanted and the husband wanted was 1 hour. let's just say 11 or 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking with the other attorney, and we both felt the same way actually on this issue. And we're talking to each other, and we couldn't get our clients to budge. And, at the end of the day, your role as a divorce attorney or any attorney on any issue, frankly, is to give advice, right? Legal advice. You can explain the options, the consequences for making certain decisions, what may happen if you don't or do something. But at the end of the day, it's always the client, and it's the client's decision. So, we couldn't force the hand, so to speak. We could only try to get our both respective clients to kind of come to an agreement on this pickup time, and they wouldn't budge. And that's what did it. I remember getting off the phone, and we're spending hours, CC, hours. And imagine, I don't care what your hourly rate as an attorney is, but hundreds of dollars per hour, right? And multiple hours on this one, what I would consider a trivial issue in the scheme of things. And I remember hanging up the phone, and I literally put my hands in the air and said, that's it. I said, there has to be a better way. And that was when I made the decision, mentally at least, to stop. I quit being a divorce attorney. And I thought there had to be a better way of doing things, because I wanted to be part of the solution more than part of the problem. And that was the catalyst. And then the rest, as they say, is history.
Well, I tell you what, I so want to change the face of divorce, because I think that things like that shouldn't take place. And that's why it's so vital, divorce coaches, to be able to help people, because, that being able to understand that, and what is that emotion, that hour, what is that? Why are you hanging on to that? And so it's not just about the hour, it's about the reason behind it. And so often coaches can kind of help that surface so that they can understand and process that a little bit. So yeah, I totally get that. And I commend you for being able to do that. So when we are stepping through divorce, right, when we're moving through it, what are some of the tips that you can give us on collecting information so that we can feel empowered? Because so often we feel lost during that period of time where, it's shifting. We don't really know. I mean, most of us that go through, the court system or through divorce, we don't know anything about the law or whatever like that. So can you give us some tips as a person moving through that type of process?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important. And I'm glad you brought it up and used the word empowered, because that's what I do too. It's the same message. And I think as coaches, that's what we try to instill in the people that we work with, right? What I do is, and I see my role as a divorce coach, is I empower the client with the knowledge that I have and that I think they need to know about divorce, so that they are equipped to make the best decisions that are going to affect the rest of their life. And so what I do, or what I try to do, is I literally, through what I call my secret sauce, and it's a combination of video course tutorials and one-on-one and live coaching with me, is that I teach you everything that I know as a divorce attorney. If other attorneys would teach you all the information that I do as a coach, it would be tens of thousands of dollars easy, just in time. And that's why they don't do it, because they don't have the time as attorneys to do it, because they're busy. And most of the time as a client, they don't have the money to spend on that. And so there's a disconnect there. And that's one of the reasons I became a coach, was to fill that void, so to speak. And so I think if you have all the information that I think you need to know, that I know as an attorney about divorce, then and you do have an attorney, and most of the people I work with actually do have attorneys, and I'll talk about that more in a second, is that when you speak with your attorney, you are going to understand what they're saying, when they're saying it, and understand the context 100 times better than if you didn't have that information. And then they say things, and then I know how it is. It amazes me that, because clients tell me this, that, their attorney will tell them something and they just kind of nod their head and say, okay, but then they leave and they really have no clarification, no idea what's going on. And then they don't want to ask their attorney to clarify, because what happens? They get billed, right? The attorney bills at an hourly rate. So the more questions, the more time, the more money you spend on that attorney. But it's like a what's the word? It's like a not double-edged sword, but it's counterintuitive, because you need that information as the client. You should have it. You should have a clear understanding of what's going on and why your attorney is recommending whatever it is they're recommending. But you don't want to ask them because you don't want to get billed. So as a coach, I solve that problem, so to speak. And I help fill in those gaps. So when you speak with your attorney, A, you have a better understanding of what's going on. And then B, you know what questions to ask, because I will tell you what questions you should be asking. And then that will help give you the clarification that you need.
Yeah, that's great. There's so many elements with regards to a divorce. I mean, there's the emotional aspect of it. It's the internal, paperwork and everything that you have to do. It's understanding a bit of the law. So you have some wits about yourself as you're going through it. And so there's so many different elements with that. And unfortunately, as we're processing divorce now currently, when you have two attorneys, there's a lot of loose ends, and it's no disregard to the attorney itself, because they can't handle everything. I mean, they're there to really making sure that their client is represented in, with the law the best way they can. And so that is their job. So all of this other elements that come into play with regards to divorce, there's no one catching that, and you are now catching that, which is a great thing, is because you're able to kind of slow down the process a little bit, let them understand, let them catch up to the process. I'm sorry, my dog is actually barking.
We have a guest,
so I do, please forgive me. But they're able to slow down the process and really help them to understand elements that are important to them. Because here's the thing, is as we're going through divorce, not everything is a high ticket to us, right? There's certain elements that may be good for someone else, but it's not to me. And so, if you talk to somebody like your friend, they're saying, oh, well, don't forget about this and that, but that doesn't really work for me,
Oh my God. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Cece, because, and I don't want to interrupt you, but
yeah,
that's a bit of gold out there for everybody. I almost want to say, if you take nothing else away from tonight, take this away. Do not listen to your friends and family about how their divorces went, because their divorce is not your divorce, and they don't know what they're talking about. No offense. I'm sure they are nice people. I'm sure they are good people, and they have your best interest at heart. But I say divorces are like snowflakes. There are no two alike. It is a fact-sensitive process that is sensitive to you and your life. And I don't care how similar you think you are to your neighbor, your friend on paper. It's not. Okay, there's different dynamics at play, and you have to treat it that way. So I kind of say, put up your hands to your ears like earmuffs, and muffle out the noise. It's because it's noise. And that's why it's so important to have the right divorce team supporting you. And when I say divorce team, I'm talking about objective people, objective professionals. And I talk about that more in depth. Check out episode, I think it's 13 of my podcast, the Divorce Resource Guy podcast. And I talk about forming your divorce team and how critical it is. And your attorney is one of the bedrock people. A coach is another, and perhaps a therapist. And there may be more people, but like going back to what you said a minute ago, Cece, your attorney is not a therapist, right? And their role is to give you legal advice for your divorce and support you emotionally, of course, because it's all wrapped in and kind of in a ball of wax there. But they're not a therapist. And I always used to tell my clients when I was a practicing attorney, I'll talk to you on the phone as long as you want about, how you feel and try to make you feel better, because I always kid, if I wasn't an attorney, I would be a psychologist. But I'm not, and I'm not a licensed psychologist. So your time doing that is better spent with an actual professional license to help in that area, And so that was always my little caveat on that. But yeah, it's just, you gotta cancel out the noise. You gotta stay focused. You have to have a strategy and stay with that focus of clarity throughout the process. Otherwise, you're gonna get derailed and you're gonna just find yourself in a mess. Sorry.
Yeah, I totally get it. Totally understand it. The thing is that when you're going through divorce, there's so many holes, with regards to your life. And so you need to have this feeling that you need to fill those holes, as you're traveling through. And I think that, really understanding the various different roles of your divorce team is important. And then possibly connecting with other like-minded people, which is why we do a great deal here on the Going Solo Network, because we find it very vital to be able to connect with other individuals that are kind of walking through the same thing you're walking through. So they have that relatability, they have that understanding, which is why these shows are so valuable. And those that are within our groups and our websites that we work on. But the aspect of really understanding your divorce and figuring out your divorce team that you want to put into place. So let's talk just briefly a little bit about a team. Like when we say we're going to put together a team, but let's share with the audience what kind of team we're talking about. Like we have the attorneys, of course. Now we have you, the divorce coach. So who else would be maybe a vital part of the team that we might want to include?
So that's a great question. And I refer to your divorce team, at least the bedrock pillars of that team, as the trifecta of awesomeness. Okay. And again, I think it's episode 13 of my podcast. I talk all about that. But your attorney, obviously, would be one of them. Mm-hmm. Most people, one of the most common questions I get is, do I need an attorney for my divorce? And it's not a black and white answer, but 95% of the time, the answer is yes. Okay. Because there are things legally about the process that either you don't know and you don't have the time because you work and you're overwhelmed and everything else in your life, that you're not going to be able to find the answer to that question. And that's where your attorney comes in, because they have that knowledge. Remember, it's the knowledge is power equation. And so you're paying for your attorney's knowledge because you don't have it. So most of the time, I always recommend that you get an attorney. Now, choosing the right attorney, that's a whole nother episode we could talk about. Because you want to choose the right attorney for your divorce. If you choose the wrong one, it could be a costly and time-consuming mistake. Okay, not every attorney is the same. Not every divorce requires the same set of skills. Just for example, I'll use the analogy of a pit bull, right? You know what a pit bull attorney is, somebody really aggressive. Not every divorce needs that. And if you don't, and you hire a pit bull type of attorney, they are going, then your spouse is going to hire somebody like that too, right? To combat it. And the attorneys are going to muck up the whole process for you. And it's going to cost you a lot more money and a lot more time over nothing, it's not necessary. So I always say choosing the right attorney, and that's what I do as a coach too, is I help you choose the right attorney for your situation, because again, your situation is unique. So that's one person of your divorce team. Then a coach, like you said, is there to help and fill in the gaps and do different things than what your attorney is. When I work with people who have attorneys, I always defer to what the attorney says, especially if they're not in New Jersey, because I'm not licensed in that state, and there's nuances to every state's divorce law. So I defer that, but I counsel you on and educating you so you're empowered again. So when you speak with your attorney, you know what's going on. Okay. And then the third pillar, I would call it, of your divorce team, in my opinion, I would go with a therapist. Okay. Because especially if you're in a contested divorce situation, and if there are children involved, minor children involved, and you're dealing with custody and parenting time issues, you need the support of a therapist, not because you're crazy, but just because you're going through a traumatic time. Divorce is one of the most traumatic times of your lives. Can you believe that? It is. And so when you're going through a trauma, like imagine you're riding a bike or walking across the street and you get hit by a car, right? That's traumatic, right? Your body is physically traumatized. And a divorce is emotionally traumatic and mentally. So that's where that's where a good psychologist who deals with people going through divorce, who understands the divorce process, will come in handy, because they will handle things that your attorney should not be handling, right? And again, most people lean on their attorneys to handle emotional aspects of the traumatic process, but that's what your therapist is for. And if you, I mean, believe me or not, that if you have those three people, and yes, those are three separate people that you're paying, which I understand, but in the long run, most divorces take upwards of a year, some 2-3 years. It's ridiculous, especially now with COVID. The courts are backed up like you wouldn't believe. So it's gonna take time, especially if it's contested. Even though you're paying three separate people, over the long run, you're gonna spend less.
Right.
And that's something mentally you have to get past right from the beginning. But it's true. And that's why I work as a divorce coach. I work with people who have attorneys all the time, because overall I keep your legal bill down, because I don't charge at an hourly rate. And so again, more time you have with me, the more empowered you are, the less time you're spending with your attorney. And so attorney, coach, therapist, those are the three pillars, the trifecta of awesomeness. And then, of course, depending on your situation, you may need more people on your team. For example, if you own your own business and you're trying to value the business and dissolve it or whatever, you're not sure what the income generated from the business is, you need a forensic accountant. You may need a forensic accountant. That's one type of expert. And so there's always...
Let's take a quick break and we'll talk a little bit about some of the experts, and they can get an idea of what is out there. And so something that I did want to say before we go on break is that you think about divorce and it has all the elements of trauma, right, involved with it. There's a death, right? The death of the relationship. There's, you're usually moving home, someone's moving out, you're all moving out or whatever, those type of things. So there's all of these transitions that are happening in your life. So it's a huge, huge undertaking when individuals go through divorce and in the family. So it's not just the one party that might decide that they want a divorce and the other one's trying to catch up to it. It's the entire family, including all of friends and family that are out there that are now realizing that this family is splitting up. So there's so many elements with regards to divorce. And I want to thank you, Jason Levoy, for being with us here today and sharing all this information with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of these experts that maybe you might be, if you're going through divorce, that maybe you might want to think about it, that it might be a ticket for you. You might want to jot down some of this information so that you can maybe refer to it later, maybe give Jason a call or check out his website. And right here, his website it's Jason Levoy. That's JasonLevoy.com. Check out his website. He's got a lot of information on there. You also have a Divorce U, I believe, right? Isn't it a Divorce U?
Divorce U. Yes, that's my group monthly membership community.
So you also have something like that, which is pretty awesome. So we're going to talk about that when we get back. We're going to talk about knowledge is power. And in order for us to really wipe out fear and be really the person that we want to be, we want to stand up tall and upright and deal with issues that are at hand. We don't want to put our head in the sand, right? And be able to move forward in a very positive, uplifting way. And so by doing that, we build our team around us to be able to support us in our time of need. And so that's what's so valuable and so important. So you guys, you're listening to Jason Levoy. He is the divorce resource guy, and he's a former divorce attorney. He turned divorce coach. We are so pleased to have him on our show here, which is Dad's Going Solo. And you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am Cece Schatz, the doyenne of relationships, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am Cece Schatz, the doyenne of relationship building. I am a life, divorce, and dating coach, a transition coach, and we want to welcome you back to Dad's Going Solo. We have our wonderful guest here today. We have Jason Levoy, aka the divorce resource guy. He is a former divorce attorney turned divorce coach, and we are so pleased to have you here with us. We're talking today, Jason, about knowledge is power, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to know a little bit more about what we can do to be able to have the information that will push away the fear so that when we step forward into making decisions on our life, because that's what people don't always understand, is that the decisions they're making today can affect their life long term. If they have children, family, whatever, as they move forward in their life. And so we were talking the first part of the show. We really discussed a lot. We discussed, your passion of why you decided to move from the attorney field to being a coach and helping people really empower themselves with knowledge to be able to move forward in divorce in a very positive, enlightenment way. So we were talking about putting together a team, and you had talked about the different tiers of that, the attorney, the coach, and the therapist, which is so valuable. And then we started talking a little bit about some of the experts, and you had mentioned that one of the experts that you may want to consider if you have a business, that you might need some sort of, financial analyst, did you say? Was it a
forensic accountant?
Oh, yeah. Forensic accounting. Yeah. So you might need to do that. So tell us a little bit about that, because maybe those out there don't even know what that is.
Sure. But financial analyst is another one too. We can talk about that after. So a forensic accountant is somebody who, if you own your own business or your spouse owns their own business, and most of the time, what I find is when people are getting divorced, either one of the spouses were in charge of the overall finances, paying the monthly bills and taking care of that, and the other spouse was kind of hands off and doesn't exactly even know what all the bills are and what, how much they are and what's going on. But if one spouse owns their own business and both spouses are not involved in that business, then the spouse that is not involved is going to be pretty much in the dark most of the time. And especially when things start hitting the fan, the spouse, let's say if it's a contested situation and you can't talk to each other and it's just not amicable, then the person, oftentimes the person who will shut the other spouse out of information, right? And again, information and knowledge is power. And so throughout the discovery portion of the divorce process, which is just a fancy legal term for the exchange of information, both sides are supposed to disclose. That's why they call it discovery. You're supposed to discover everything there is about the finances and assets and debts and all that. But oftentimes, if there's, let's say, a business, a family-owned business, or just a business that's run by one spouse, the other spouse, doesn't know what to expect in the discovery. And then even whatever information is disclosed, the other spouse doesn't know whether to believe it or not. And so for just a quick example, let's just say you have a business. It doesn't matter what it is, but let's say during the marriage, you as the non-business owning spouse, thought you lived an affluent lifestyle. You had a nice house, nice cars, went on vacation every year. You didn't quite know how much that business was bringing in, but you knew it was substantial. And then things hit the fan, you're getting divorced. Now your spouse, through the disclosure process, discloses that, well, the business isn't as good as you thought it was. He's only making $40,000 a year, right? When really we're talking maybe it could be $1 million or plus business. And so that's a big difference, right? A $40,000 lifestyle and salary is way different than a $1 million plus lifestyle, right? So now if you're the spouse who doesn't own that business and isn't involved in that business, and you're being told in the divorce that it's only a $40,000 business, what do? Right? You're in a pickle is what you're in, because you don't believe it's true. It's not true, but how do you prove it? And you have to prove it. So that's where a forensic accountant comes into play. A forensic accountant will analyze the business because they know what records and documents they need to review. And every business owner has to keep certain records and file certain reports depending on how the business is formed and blah, blah, blah. But they will, and there's always a trail, a money trail. You probably heard the term before, and so what the forensic accountant does is that they will link in the gaps and they will create the trail that you can't connect yourself. And so they will be able to show that, in fact, this business is not $40,000 business. It's a $1.5 million business. And now you're in business, or should I say back in business, in the divorce, because now if you have to value that business and you as the non-business owning spouse, let's just say for argument's sake, you're entitled to half the value of the business, then you know what that business is worth and what you are entitled to financially. And so again, that's a big difference, $1.5 million and $40,000. So again, if a forensic accountant would be there and they're not cheap, but they may be necessary. And they're only used, frankly, when you don't think the information that you have is accurate, truthful, and substantially different from a financial standpoint than what you're being told.
Right. And I know that there's times when you can, go to the court and ask the court that the other party to pay for it, that kind of thing. And sometimes when that happens, the reasoning is that, they take into consideration your lifestyle. I mean, if your lifestyle exceeds what you would make in $40,000, then it's pretty safe to say that there was some money coming in somewhere. You can't support yourself normally. And you have been doing it. So
right. If you're in a 5,000 square foot house driving a BMW, you're probably making more than $40,000.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are things that you can do, but with you being a coach, those are the things that you could kind of say, hey, this is maybe what you want to talk to your attorney about. Maybe you can ask, and ask the court to ask for the other side to pay for the forensic accounting because something's not lining up. So those kind of things are really great. So tell us a little bit about any other experts that we might want to think about.
Well, you had mentioned it before. A financial analyst might be an expert you want to engage in the divorce process. And what a financial analyst would do, it would help you kind of prepare financially for your post-divorce life. And oftentimes when you're in the thick of it and you're going through the process and it's overwhelming enough and that's all you can think about day to day is, how am I going to get through this? What sometimes gets lost is what's going to happen after. And every decision that you make during the divorce should be geared to whatever your post-divorce life is going to be. And if you don't know what it's going to be, you better start thinking about it now. And that's what I also do as a coach is, even before the divorce begins, I help you start articulating and thinking about what you want your post-divorce life to be. And it's not just what you want it to be because, we all want certain things, but that doesn't mean you're going to get those things. But it's more of a planning and a strategy forming idea. Where do you see yourself? Obviously, if you're living in one house now, you're getting divorced, maybe you stay in the house, maybe you don't. Maybe you sell the house and then you got to live somewhere else. Start thinking about these things, especially if you have children. How are you going to survive? Are you working now during the marriage? If not, are you going to be working after the divorce? And what's that going to look like? Do you need to go back to school? And how are you going to pay for that? A financial analyst will help you not only figure out how are you going to and what type of finances you need to make your post-divorce life a reality for you, and to tell you if it can be a reality, but they also help you plan for the future and retirement. And that's another thing that often gets lost. I can't tell you how often, as a divorce attorney, when we were negotiating settlements and fighting it out with experts, and sometimes in order to pay for those experts, we would be withdrawing and divesting, the children's college funds, retirement accounts. And when you think about it, it was crazy. And that's one of the reasons why I quit, was because I couldn't stand to be part of that, and so a financial analyst will help you with retirement. If you're getting alimony, if you're going to be getting half or some of your spouse's retirement accounts as part of the distribution from the divorce, what should you do with them, right? A lot of people don't know. And so that's where a financial analyst will help you.
Yeah, that's great. And then also there's like tricky things like, if you have like a quadro and all of these kind of things, all these things that you wouldn't even, a lot of people wouldn't really even know what they are. And then also, to evaluate what insurances you need, because, if that person is the breadwinner and they're going to be paying alimony or they're going to be paying child support and something happens to them and then that goes away, how are you going to survive? So insurances need to be in place. So there are a lot of elements within a divorce that things need to be looked at, but you're just at the emotional roller coaster. Sometimes you can't, the people can't really get to that. So it's nice to have someone that they can talk to and be able to kind of not only understand the emotional part of it, but then also can keep directing them on the paper trail or the paper path that they need to kind of keep going on to understand, so they can empower themselves to be able to create, a divorce really of their choice. I think, do we want to argue and fight, right? Or do
you got to pick and choose your battles, I say.
Yeah.
If you want to fight to the death over everything, well, then you're going to spend everything you have and it's going to take you years. and so, right. Not only do things have a monetary value, like your attorney's hourly rate or your whatever you're paying a coach or whatever expert you're using, but things have a emotional value to you. So whenever somebody's fighting over something, like for example, the reason why I quit when I was fighting over that 1 hour of pickup time, right, for that case, I would try to convince my client, not only are you spending hundreds of dollars over an hour of time, emotionally, what is that worth to you? And adding another 6 months, $25,000, I'm just throwing that out there, onto your divorce. What is that emotionally worth to you? That time, right? Everything, time and your mental health has a value. I guarantee you. You just have to figure out what that is for you.
Yeah, that is so true. Well, I tell you what, the time went by very quickly, and I know we could probably talk longer because it is such a difficult subject. But to have the power, we really do need to have the knowledge, and we have to have ourselves open to individuals that really know what they're talking about, that can kind of help guide us through some of those tough situations. And you certainly can do that. Jason Levoy, you are the AKA the divorce resource guy. And we do appreciate you being on here, on the show here with us. And I know that you have helped hundreds and empower them, help them move forward and making the correct decisions for themselves and their families. So we want to thank you so much. Again, any closing words for our audience here tonight?
just have a plan. Again, I can't stress enough, form your divorce team early, and have a plan, have a strategy, do everything intentionally with purpose, and you'll be better off.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you so much for that. We do appreciate it. Again, his website is Jason Levoy. That's JasonLevoy.com. Go check it out. He's got a lot of information on there, blogs and all kinds of things. You also do a podcast. So it's great that you're giving the information out over to your audience. And so we do appreciate you joining our audience here tonight very much. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me, Cece.
It is great. Well, everyone, the time went by very quickly, and unfortunately, we're going to have to roll. But this is the Dad's Going Solo show. We are talking about knowledge is power, and the more information we can get, the more understanding we can have, we can move through our lives in a very, informative way, right? To be able to touch and embrace other people. We want to thank you here on the Going Solo Network. All you have to do is find all our shows on right above me, which is the goingsolomedia.com. All our shows are listed there. We're live here on Facebook and on YouTube. Our platforms are still there, open with all of our shows you're welcome to listen to. We are starting our Going Bold Wednesday, and we're talking about men's issues, topics, and concerns. We had the pub right before me. We're going to have the care package after me. Unfortunately, tonight he's not able to do it. He wasn't feeling well. He has COVID. Ooh, so we're hoping that everything's going to go okay with him. So far, he's doing pretty good. So we're just hoping that all of that will go well. But he'll be back on next time. We'll be back in a couple weeks' time, or we're a bi-weekly show. And then after that, we're going to have, of course, the barbershop. And I love that show with Dr. Christopher Salute. And we're throwing in something extra for you. We're going to do the boy and girl show after that. So that's going to be from 11 to midnight, which is Eastern time. So I hope you'll stick around for that. I'm going to be on that show with Dr. Christopher Salute, and he just doesn't know what he has in store for him. So it'll be a lot of fun. Well, I am Cece Schatz. Again, I'm the doyenne of relationship building. I'm a divorce, dating, and life transitional coach. I hope that you enjoyed the show. I truly think we're very blessed to have Jason Levoy, aka the divorce resource guy, with us. And again, he went from being a divorce attorney to being a divorce coach. So if you need something, go to his website. Again, it is jasonlevoy.com. That's JasonLevoy.com. And we'll catch you next time. Bye for now, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the show. This is Dad's Going Solo. Bye.